Sarah Andrews, once again here to bring you Words of the Wise, this time featuring James Dixon and Kristen Mun. The theme this month is race in theater. I hope y'all get as much out of this interview as I did. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to Words of the Wise. I'm sitting here with Kristen Mun and James Dixon, and the topic this month is race in theater. These two are very seasoned professionals, and I'm going to give them a chance to just talk a little bit about who they are and what they do. I guess y'all can decide amongst yourselves who goes first.
You go first, Kristen.
Okay, sure. So I'm Kristen Mun. I'm primarily worked in Portland as a stage manager and fight choreographer. I was born and raised in Hawaii, and I'm of Chinese and Filipino descent. Yeah. She, her pronouns. Yeah.
And I'm James Dixon. My pronouns are he, they, and queen, whichever one you prefer, and I mean that seriously. And I'm a Portland-based actor, director, and equity facilitator. I started my career 6 years ago at later in life, and I'm originally from North Carolina, and I've been in Portland for 13 years now, I believe. So yeah, love it so far.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We all had a chance to kind of talk a little bit before. So the big thing behind Words of the Wise is, what do you wish you could have told a younger you before getting into this business? Like, if you could pass down any wisdom to a younger person, what would it be? And we also talked a little bit about how Jen Lanier, who we interviewed last time, talked a lot about auditioning and being your authentic you. So I'm just going to pose the question to you now and let the conversation and the interview take whatever shape it's going to take. So.
I don't know. I remember being really little and seeing other kids doing artsy stuff. I mean, and I was allowed to participate, but it was mostly like blonde-haired, blue-eyed white kids, and the stuff they wanted the Black kids to do. I mean, we all did the same thing, which makes sense, making all the kids do the same things together. But now that I'm older, I've always felt like I've been learning how to assimilate since I was aware that I was different from other kids. And I kind of wish someone had told me early on that it's okay to be a young Black kid, and it's okay to, and it's okay to be different. And, I wish I'd have more opportunities to be around other young Black kids making art the way I'm doing it now, because we didn't really have those opportunities like I'd wanted. Yeah. But now that's different. So at this point in the game, I'm really happy, and I feel fulfilled, and I feel really lucky that I'm in a position to give something back to folks that are younger than me. As an actor, I remember doing kid shows and seeing little Black kids in a sea of white kids in Portland, and seeing them look at me and realizing how important it is for people to see people that look like me on stage. So that gives me excitement every day.
Kristen, what about you?
I think for me, oh man, I think for me, like, because I'm a technician, and I take a lot of pride in like the work that I do. And, I really resonated when I heard Jennifer talk about just being like your authentic self. I think something that I would have told my younger self is to not let other people define me. It's very interesting, when I moved to the mainland, I just would get a little confused at why everyone would tell me like how to identify. And in particular, as a kid from Hawaii, there was a lot of time, because of the way that I look, and I'm, ethnically ambiguous for some folks. When I would say I'm from Hawaii, they would immediately assume I was Hawaiian, because I had like sort of bold features. And I felt the need to correct that, because like when you're born and raised in Hawaii, that's not if you don't have Hawaiian blood, you do not identify as Hawaiian. It's not like I'm an Oregonian or I'm a Washingtonian. It's not the same, right? And I remember just being really, really confused at why everyone, like, there would be people who would correct me. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I sort of let whiteness wash over me to the point that I feel like I lost myself a little bit. My accent went away. Just even like, we all live in America, so we all absorb a lot of whiteness. And in doing so, I lost a little bit of like my own culture and my own upbringing. And so I feel like the thing I would tell my younger self is to lean in to what makes you, whether that is your race, whether that is gender, whether that is, just the things that you love is like going to make you that artist that is, unique, incredible. That's like the whole point of theater, is to bring people together from different backgrounds, different sources, different ideas, and create something. Yeah, it was interesting because I feel like there was even a point where I was hesitant to even like say where I was from or what my ethnic background was, because then came more questions that made me feel othered, and I just feel like if I could talk to my younger self, I would say lean into it, take pride in it, go further with it. I have gone so much further with my Filipino culture and heritage because like I want to embrace it more. It's not something I actually like know a ton about. And I like lean into it more and I embrace it more. And it's awesome,
Mm-hmm.
That's so rad. I've known you this long, Kristen, and I wanted to know the difference between like people saying like, I'm not Hawaiian, I'm born and raised in Hawaii. I'm from Hawaii, but I'm not Hawaiian, and I just never asked because I think it's rude to ask. And I think there's power in self-identification, but something you said resonated with me. I remember being 12 years old and my mom gave me the talk, and it's one is the talk that mothers give when you're old enough to sin. So yeah. So at this age, you'll go to hell for doing things is pretty much what I heard. And then after that, she said, if you want what they have, you do what they do, and I kind of feel guilty saying that sometimes because I'm not trying to be anything that I'm not meant to be. I'm not trying to be white or anything like that, but I definitely got much farther in life, going to school, speaking a certain way, articulating a little bit more. We called it code switching, and I think that any artist is going to have that skill set to navigate this world. But I'm trying to create more spaces where that's not really necessary and we can take people as they are. As a director who has done mostly Black work, I've done queer work too. You'd be surprised how many times I have to tell actors to stop apologizing in their work. You know what I mean? And honestly, saying that as a director, I started as an actor. I'm like, this is what I've been doing. Like, stop apologizing. Give them what they came here to see. Give them what you're going to allow them to see. Give them access to what is genuinely, truly you, and don't apologize for it, because that is the power of storytelling. And no one's ever told us early on in life that our story really matters, Right. And I think that's what's powerful about what we do as well. Yeah, that went to a place, didn't it? Mm-hmm. I just feel like a lot of kids. I've done equity work at universities. I've been to 3 universities now, colleges, universities, higher level education that do the arts, and you'd be surprised. The thing that's synonymous is one, there's a lot of sexual harassment in these schools. I'm just going to say that straight up. There's not enough protection for women in these schools, but there's always a racially ambiguous actor who is always cast when we do the August Wilson plays. You always put your Black kids in this, and you put them in this, or you've got the teachers that like to colorblind cast, and anybody can play any role. And I just never really jived into that because no one ever asked the students what shows they want to put on. No one ever asked the students their opinion. And that's something I've always tried to drill in the teachers. So I think when people are thinking about going to school, I think it's really important to look at, maybe go stop by and ask some other folks that look like you what the school program is like there and what it's like for them, and make sure this is a place where you got to be taken care of and get the best education possible.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that the teachers have your back and will tell you not to apologize.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's a rare thing. I'm not knocking any of my other clients if they end up seeing this, but I was like, and sometimes they walk out feeling guilty. I was like, it's your job to advocate for them. You just like we advocate for our characters and advocate for these stories, we have to advocate for the people telling these stories too. And you'd be surprised how much is perpetuated just in the way we teach folks. We're teaching people what their place is in this work. And I just don't think that's fair. I think that's something we've got to unpack. Yeah.
Well, I just want to take a moment. So Kristen and I were talking before this, and she did not know that I earned a degree in acting or that I totally did the whole theater program thing. There is one of the things that is really drilled in, I feel like, to theater students' heads is that there's a way to do theater, right?
Yes.
It is very elitist, and it's very not who you are at all kind of thing. It's like, don't show who you are, period. No one wants to see that. Mm-hmm. So my question is between when y'all became professionals to where you are now, was there a moment where you finally just had this reckoning where you were I am done with this, no more? I'm just curious if that ever happened to you two. I
yes.
Collective, and so you're part of a really awesome organization that's holding other organizations accountable. So what was that moment? What can I ask about it? You don't have to share either.
I'm not going to say any names because they're going to know who they are. But I stopped auditioning for musicals. And it's not that I don't do musical theater anymore. It's just I know what my vocal range is. I know what my skill set is. I know what my talent level is. I don't tap dance. I'm a bass. Basses don't get a lot of work, steady work as far as leads. I learned to sing baritone. So I found every time I'm trying to audition for a show, I find myself trying to get somewhere they need me to be. I got to hit those high notes. And of course I've got to do my best work, and I've got to do vocal training and things like that. But I got tired of showing up at these auditions without tap shoes, without knowing how to dance, surrounded by a bunch of younger white kids who have been doing this since they were in grade school and twirling circles around me. And you know what? I went in there and I did it anyway. And I'm not knocking the process because, yes, as a director, we have to have dance calls. People have to have a certain skill level with certain things, and we're looking for that. But if you're trying to diversify, that's the difference between diversity and equity. I didn't go to school for this. I didn't go to school for theater. I didn't go to school for dance. I could get some money and go learn, but I'm 40 years old. And I have stories to tell too. Why am I always doing the showboats, and why am I always playing the help? Where's the Black joy? Where are the Black stories? Do we really have to go through so many hoops to tell these stories? Why are we really doing this work? So yeah, that happened to me a couple of years ago, and that's when I started doing dramas. I mean, we did Parade together, Sarah, and I actually really loved that show. It was a beautiful show that we did, but I did Showboat twice, and I was like, fuck. I was like, can I say fuck on this? I'm sorry, I said it. Don't use profanity.
It's all good.
And I was like, man, I want to do something else. Can we do some Porgy and Bess? No, we don't have no black folks. You know, everyone that decides what stories we tell are the people that have the money. And, you know, and it feels like a rat race that I was never really given the rules to. And it feels like a rat race that it's like I'm waiting my turn. So then I was just like, I've done enough work. If you want to work with me, call me and let me know when you want me to show up. Otherwise, I'm going to go over here and do me, because it just feels how much effort are organizations taking to educate young kids of color, getting, you know, for all these actor training workshops they have and all these kids camps and things like that. How many kids of color are you getting in there? And I know some folks are doing it, but there's more we could be doing besides inviting black folks out when you have a black role and then telling them they're not good enough, and then they walk out the door. And I've seen it happen so many times outside of me. So I can go on about this for a minute, but that's why I want to be in this position to offer work for folks or mentor folks or point people in the right direction to get the needs that they need, the things they need. Yeah. How about you, Kristen? Were you ever a performer, Kristen, or just?
You know, I was never a performer. Well, that's not true. I performed in high school, but I also went to a high school that like had a very baby theater program. So like there was no one to teach the technical side, even though I was like, what's this do? You know, like, how does this move? You know, I just love I love the magic of like what happens on stage and like the stuff that like just goes on behind the scenes, that like, you know, the work it takes for like a split second of a moment, you know, and like the production meetings for this one thing. I just love that stuff. I love it, you know? So I didn't have like a teacher, so I did acting in high school. And then that's how I actually got into fight choreography, is because I was a part of like a teen acting company. And then we were doing a devised show that was going to have fights in it. So we worked with our first fight choreographer and did our first fight workshop. And they were like, okay, who's going to be in the fights in the show? And I was like, me! Because I knew that there was no way I was going to do it in real life, you know? I'm petite. I've been petite my whole life. Even when I was at rehearsal this one time, the fight choreographer was like, "Oh man, it's just not quite looking right. You're not quite looking as strong as you could." And I said, "It's because I'm little." And he was like, "No." He was like, "Oh no." And I was so embarrassed because I just implicitly just said what I've heard from other people. And his encouragement in that moment, yes, I got embarrassed, but after that, I was like, why not? You know, okay, let's see what happens. I think for me, my aha came in waves in some ways, you know. I want to acknowledge that like I'm a light person, or I'm a light-skinned person of color, you know, and there are privileges that I have because of it. And I want to say it out loud and acknowledge it. I think my aha came in waves because of this. I remember talking to my professors in college, and I said to them, the stage managers know when they're doing things correctly when you don't speak to them at all. And I didn't mean it to be hurtful or harmful. I just meant it to be truthful. I was like, the only way we know that we're doing it right is when we don't hear from you. And I wanted that to be a moment that they could think about, you know. I honestly didn't think that they were going to do anything about it. I just needed them to know that's how it worked for us. All of the stage managers at my undergrad, we had a little cohort. When we had questions, we actually didn't go to the professors. We went to each other because there was a sort of feeling of failure if you had to ask a professor. And that was an aha moment for me later. In the moment, I just was like, this is how it is, right? And then as I started like working in theater, oh my gosh, like the toxicity of perfectionism is so real, you know, and as a stage manager, there's just so much pressure to get it right that it can be overwhelming, you know. And I think that I'm still working on that on myself every day. That one trait defined it, or used to define so much about my personality, that I truly did not have that aha moment until I started going into racial justice and racial justice work, which is like last year. Come on, you know, it is constant work being a human being. You gotta keep like working on yourself and keep doing. But yeah, I think that as a fight choreographer, you know, James, something you said about like, you know, like being a director and like creating those opportunities for people. I think there was a point that I realized when I was in Portland, I had so many female friends who were like, oh God, Kristen, I was in this show and like, they just told us to like make the fight, and like, oh, and I would get banged up every night, and like, oh, we should have had you. And I was like, for the love, I was like,
I was in that show. I think we might have called you. I think I know what show we're talking about.
And it happened enough that I was like, please call me. And to the point where even like as I started to move forward as a fight choreographer in Portland, if there wasn't a woman in the show, if there wasn't a person of color in the show, then I would recommend another fight choreographer, right? Because like the thing I realize is that with the privilege I have, I can determine who I work with, and who I want to work with is women and people of color, because I want to know that they are in a safe space, that they know. Like, talk about apologizing, James. My goodness, so many people apologize to me like when they don't get fight choreography right. And I'm like, have you been in a fight before? Have you held a sword? You okay? Don't worry about it, you know? And that it can be fun, and it can be compassionate, and it can be safe and exciting, not in a scary way, in a good way, right? And that's what I want for people every single night. And when I started getting those like stories and like just all of these things that had happened, it was that aha moment of like, wow, because of the education I received, because of the mentors I had, the privilege that I experienced, that nobody made me feel unsafe, you know, and anybody who did, I had the tools that I needed to speak up for myself, and also to like to defend myself, you know. Like one of the stories I like to tell my students is like, when I first got certified in quarterstaff, my partner is a super sweet, gigantic Hawaiian man. Like, he was like, I used to like run and like jump on him. He was so sweet though, and he was so great. And we did Robin Hood and Little John for our quarterstaff fight. And when we did that fight, my teacher, he looked at me and he said, okay, Kristen, you have to learn how to move. You have to move. So if you need to take 2 steps for every 1 step he takes, then that's what you have to do. And then he looked at my partner and he said, don't hold back on her. I was like, gah! But like, it taught me, you know, and because my teacher didn't see me, like saw me, right? Saw me, petite Kristen, who's feisty and fiery, and if I push her, she'll go, you know? I was granted an opportunity to hone my skill so that when I did have somebody who pushed me in a way that wasn't safe or wasn't right, I was like, I could get away from you. Like I used it, you know, but I never felt unsafe because I had that training. And I realized, my aha moment was that I realized, oh, I could give this to other people. I can train other people. Look at me. I'm like so tiny. I was like, but I can teach you how to move, you know? I can teach you how to protect yourself. I can give you the tools, and it doesn't need to be real to look real, you know? And it's actually way more fun. and way more satisfying when you have trust and love and like compassion in the work that you're doing.
So,
But that can be said for just about it. That can be said for a lot of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
What were you saying, Sarah?
I just want to like circle back to this idea of being safe, right? I mean, there are so many traps in the theater world that people can fall into. So, like, let's explore that concept of like with this limited time that we have, like, what does safe look like in all respects? Like, when we're working in this business, what does safe look like, and what are our rights? How do we defend ourselves if push comes to shove?
It's funny. I got it later on in my career, just understanding how unsafe certain situations were for me. And I guess until I was in a situation where I felt safe, I'm like, oh, this is what it feels like to bring my entire self into this work. And it's funny because out of all the roles, it's when I got to work at Art and to be in 2 Trains Running and an all-black cast and an all-black theater company and an all-black team with people that knew August. I mean, I just felt really held, And I think as a Black artist, any person of color will always be called in for a role. There's trauma in there somewhere, Black dead bodies, slavery, and those roles are important. I'm not saying we shouldn't take those roles, but I think when we get that audition call, I personally like to ask questions. I like it when actors ask me questions before an audition or during one. I create space for it because I want you to know that you can ask me. If someone asks for a Black male and they have an all-white artistic team, I'm just curious to know why this character is Black, why this character needs to be Black. And I'm also, if I'm the only person that can play that role, who's taking care of me? What's significant about why does this character have to be Black? And if the director or the producer can't answer that question, it's probably not safe to work there, because you find yourself like the show we did, Sarah. I mean, someone's walking up to me, asking me if this is where you're dropping N-bombs in my ear. And I'm like, okay, I know the N-word's in the script, white actor, but we're not running a scene right now. And so when you're taking the liberty to take your moment to use this word leisurely, you're not realizing how unsafe that is for me, because it's really important that I know that when white actors are saying, I did Dutchman a couple years ago, Elizabeth and I spent hours talking to each other after the audition before I even took the role. And then we spent a lot of time just building trust with one another, because she says the most awful things to me. And even though we're acting, words, there's the power of words, the power of intention. It's a real thing. And I like to know that someone's there to take care of me and that we can actually take some time and talk about what we're bringing into the work every day. What am I bringing into this work? What am I taking out? I think about directing Matter with Charles Grant a couple months ago, and not a couple months. This was in last fall in September, and we've been locked up. So we're in COVID status. We're doing it in person. George Floyd has died at this point. Breonna's dead at this point. This show is about police violence. I think his name was it Josh Blake, Mr. Blake, and who was shot in front of his kids in the car. We literally had rehearsal that day, and I can't start rehearsal without checking in with the Black folks in the room and say, hey, do we want to talk about this? Should we bring it into the work today? Should we take it out? We have a break every hour. Should we take a break every 15 today? We have to be willing to take that time. And, it set me back a little bit, but I would rather slow my process down and readjust my work with my stage manager to make sure my actors land safely. Not just my actors, my sound designer even had problems with the stuff we were working on. We got to think about what's happening in the world, because professionalism for folks like us means a lot more than just showing up and leaving our personalities and our culture at the door. We bring it into the work as well. And we want to make sure we can be whole when we do that. That's what I love the most about what I do. We're both on the Accountability Collective, and I've been doing equity work for a while. It's not like I set out and wanted to do it, but or wanted to be a director, but it's thrust upon you, and you realize that, hey, someone's listening to me. This is what I needed from a director in the past. And I try to bring that to as many directors as I can, especially white ones who are running white-led organizations, dealing with anti-racism work and wanting to do something in this new world. Are you the person that should be telling that story? Why don't you give another Black director the chance to go tell that story? And it's just so many other options to make sure that people are taken care of and that people are actually safe and telling their own stories. Yeah.
I want to lift something up. Yeah, I want to lift something up that you said, James, that you don't have to put yourself aside to be an actor, right? You have the right to feel shitty. Oh, look at me. I'm swearing now. You have the right to you have the right to feel bad about the world and where it's at and be an actor. And like for people of color, that is something that is felt in your body, and that is okay. That is all right. As a fight director, it is within your right as an actor to ask a fight director to change their choreography completely. If it doesn't work for your body, that's exactly what you should do. You have every right to do that. I am a 4'9" Asian woman. I teach like 6-foot men how to fight, right? But
you taught me how to swashbuckle.
You did great. You know, it's like I like that is like the biggest thing that right, like this thing that you said, Sarah, of like there's a right way to do theater, and particularly in the field of like fight choreography. It's very male dominated, right? But who is the people who are, how do I say this? If you're doing a play with domestic violence, who is the violence going towards? It's going towards a woman, right? It's not all like Three Musketeers and Robin Hood. I wish it was, but like if you want to tell that story authentically, you gotta protect, you know, you gotta have training, you gotta, and it is 100% okay for you to say, I don't feel comfortable with this move. Like, I have no idea. Like, it's okay for you to have your life experience and also be an artist, right? For example, I was offered a opportunity to provide mentorship to stage managers, but the topic was shootings and gun violence. And I personally have went through like an active shooter situation, and I'm going through therapy for it. I'm taking care of myself. I'm checking in with my wise self, you know, and I checked in with myself and I was like, I don't think I'm ready for this, you know, and so I handed it off and I was like, maybe next time. But it's 100% okay. It often feels like if you turn down a gig or if you close a door that they're never going to come again. That's not true.
Not true. Mm-hmm.
And like, I feel like a really, really important right to know and to realize is like, just because you close like a door or you say no to a project, it doesn't mean that no projects are ever going to come to you. I mean, if COVID has taught us anything, it's that, you know, like you cannot, like you can plan as much as you want, but nature, she don't care about your plans, you know.
You don't care about your plans.
No.
Oh my God. We were in that forest. I mean, we were recording this show and I'm like, fuck, there's smoke in the air and there's a forest fire and my actor can't breathe. Turn on the AC. And then the sound's not working right because the AC is on. And I'm just like trying to stay calm because there's protests happening outside. Like protests are happening right outside, like blocks away, and a fire. And we're in here having the privilege to make social justice theater and hoping that someone will give a shit about it. that somebody will be affected by it. And while taking care of ourselves at the same time, it's literally a dance. And it's a whole, it's not the director's job solely. It's everyone touching it. Everybody has a voice in my space. Everyone. So anyone can call ouch in the space. Anyone can call ouch for someone in the space, even if you have to do it privately, because that's attention. That means we're taking care of one another and making sure we're landing here together. Because a lot of times there's this access. I think about this access to knowledge when we think about gatekeeping and the access to that knowledge, the access to work. I've had directors I've talked back to that don't want to talk to me anymore. They don't want to give me work. And I've been telling more people that you have to be willing to say no. You have to be willing to say no to the gig and be okay with not working with that person ever again, because that's not a person you want to work with. You don't want to work with a person that doesn't care about, we're not therapists, we're not doing therapy by stopping the process, but we can sit down for a couple of minutes and unpack something and make sure that we, look around and make sure we're giving it attention so we can actually build a foundation for good work. Yeah, that's something I'm glad we brought that up. It's hard. I get a lot of work as a Black actor because it's a really white town, but there's some roles I'm just not going to take anymore. And I think people should really evaluate what stories we're wanting to tell right now after this election, this pandemic, and out of all these protests. Joe Biden is not our solution to, don't get me wrong. It's not, everything's not fixed magically.
That's it.
There's work to be done ongoing. And the people like us who've been doing this work, we were doing it before Trump got in office, before Obama even got in office. It's always been there. And we have to keep drilling, and we have to keep fine tuning and being critical of ourselves as much as possible. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, there was some.
I had to take a breath there. Sorry. Breathe. Take a moment to breathe.
Everything in life.
Right.
So let's just start to wrap up what we're doing here, right? So what are some, after this conversation was great, after this conversation, like, what are your final thoughts, wishes, hopes for the future, words of encouragement? You pick your own topic to close this one out on.
I don't know. I just think it's really important to know your value and to know that you have value. And if you're not a person that knows what your value, find somebody like me and I will tell you, I will reaffirm you. I'll reaffirm that you have value. Even if I don't know, if you haven't shown, you don't have to show it to me. You have value, and what you have is something that people need and want. And people have to ride the beat of that throughout all the nonsense, because I'm sick of people asking me where I went to school. I'm sick of people asking me what training I had. Yes, actors need training. Yes, school is helpful. But that is, if you don't have those things, doesn't mean you can't get it. And it doesn't mean that you can't work. So I'm just really sick of that gatekeeping thing. And people have to really start focusing on their identities and telling their own stories. Read Black work. Black queers, read Black queer work. There's not enough Black work happening, contemporary Black work happening, and also queer work, feminist work. Just really think about those stories nobody really wants to put on stage. It's for a reason. It's because it's going against the grain, and those are the stories we really want to tell more than anything, because those people are left out in the margins right now. Those are the people that are being snuffed out while we're putting all this stuff on the news. These people, trans folks, Black folks, women, these stories have to be told now more than ever, so that we can create this space where we can tell our stories and be seen and take up space for ourselves. That's what I want to leave people with.
Yes. And don't stop learning, don't stop educating yourself. Find a mentor if you can. It's always helpful to just have another person to bounce ideas off of, or just talk through experiences, if possible, And you like, I think, okay, I want to touch on just one thing that we talked about earlier about like this idea of like a safe space, right? Know where your blind spots are. Know where your blind spots are. Know what it feels like in your body to be uncomfortable, and be okay with being uncomfortable, right? You're going to have to speak up for yourself at some point. You're going to have to speak up for someone else at some point. And put your feet on the ground, take a deep breath, know what it's like to feel uncomfortable, and use that voice, because you have a right to take up space. You have a right to be there. You have the right. That's, talking about gatekeeping, talking about like hierarchy, talking about all these things that need to just be dismantled. Know that you are worth time and space. And that sometimes a safe space is an uncomfortable space. And sometimes that the space really needs to be called a brave space, because you have to be able to have big, brave conversations.
Safer, braver space. Love it. Thanks so much for having us here today. I think this is so important. So important. I just urge people to speak up for themselves. And if you don't know how to speak up for yourselves, find me. I'll do it for you. I'm not looking for trouble, but I love knocking on doors. I love sending emails to folks. If you don't feel like you're being taken care of, that's what the Accountability Collective is for. We will reach out to folks and see what we can do to undo these biases and make an environment where we can tell our stories safely and be seen and heard like as we should be. So just reach out. I appreciate you.
And is it .org or .com? Accountability Collective
.org.
.org.
Wait. Let me make sure. I don't want to.
Wait, it's a new website. But my website's .com.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
accountabilitycollective.com.
Accountability Collective, or get in touch with James or Kristen, you can go to the accountabilitycollective.org.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you two so much for being here and for taking this time out of your day to spend with me and to talk about these things. Yeah, I hope you two have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for having us. Bye, you guys.
Thank you so much for joining us for that interview. If you'd like to continue to support Crave Theater, you can do so by subscribing to this page, or you can become a monthly donor at cravetheater.org. Or if you just want to give like a one-time donation, we'd be more than happy to accept that. So again, thank you for your time. Have a wonderful evening.